is Locked On Jazz for the 11th of March. The 11th of March. It was 2 years ago. We were in Oklahoma City when the world stopped. Has it been 2 years? Does it seem like it's been 100 years? We'll talk about probably not that. Instead, we'll look at the Utah Jazz rotations. One of the things we said was key. How have they come together since Joe Ingles went out? And what did we learn there? Are the Jazz good enough defensively against the best of teams? We'll analyze that, and it is a Points Gain Friday. This is all coming up on today's edition of Locked On Jazz. Pow.
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, how are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice, Jazz NBA Insider. This is Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day, and we are free and available on all platforms. Thanks so much for tuning in and being a part of the show today. Special hello to our live chat room, Bryce and Forrest and Tyler and James and Cameron and Josh and Dana and Matt and Spencer and many others. Thanks so much. All right, so kind of we've talked about as we headed in the break, we had these kind of three things that we needed to look at as the season went on. And the three things, one of which was whether we had 240 minutes of basketball. So in other words, 240 is 48 times 5. When we lost Joe Ingles on January 31st, I think it was that he got hurt, and Rudy Gay hasn't quite clicked in yet, we were short, in my mind, about 40 minutes of basketball. We were short 1/5 of our minutes. And with Joe out, we had to redo the lineup and the rotation and our bridge lineup. So let's take a look at where we are with that and what we've done and what our rotations are since February 1st. Now, there's two different ways to look at this. One would be to just decide, that you're looking at stuff from the Jazz and decide to look at it without Joe Ingles. But I kind of feel like there's a better way to look at it, which is to do it since February 5th. That to me seems, or since February 1st. And then we could even debate a little bit from there whether or not we think that there are other aspects of this that are better to look at, because of the fact that we have to really figure out kind of who we are, what we're doing, all those kind of things. Sorry, the graph that I wanted to look up is not the one that's available to me right now the way I wanted. So let me see if I can find it better. No, I cannot. All right, so we're going to do it a little differently than I had thought. This is the problem with a live show, because if we had, if I didn't have a live show, I could have just fixed that and started over. But we're live, so I have to do it this way. All right, I can't get one of the filters I wanted because the site that I was looking for just somehow changed. Not sure what just happened to me. I'm very flustered right now, everybody, if you're wondering. So just so you guys know, I have everything saved in, there we go. I got it now. I have everything saved in my systems as bookmarks. So everywhere I ever go, all the places I'm ever going to go, I know I'm going to go, and then I have bookmarks for them. And one of my bookmarks for NBA.com became something different. I'm literally sweating out of stress and anxiety right now from that. That's really funny. I hope you guys are laughing. I don't know if you can see it, but I am like completely flustered. Okay, so let's look at the lineups we've used the most. We have our starting five, which interestingly enough has been one of our best lineups, and it's been really bad recently. It's minus 7.3 in the last 8 games it's played. We've just started games super badly. Then our next rotation is Trent Forrest and Hassan Whiteside come into the game with Bojan Bogdanovic, Royce O'Neal, Donovan Mitchell. So this is like our second subgroup. This group, which actually had struggled a little bit over the last 12 games, so I'm doing this since February 1st, which is kind of the first time we played without Joe Ingles, is plus 21.4. So that's great because that's a lineup that Trent Forrest is in instead of Joe Ingles, and that's our first little piece there. It's plus 21.4. Number 2 is Hassan. The next group is Jordan Clarkson comes in with a later group that's played the most is then kind of before we get is Hassan's back in the game with Bojan, Jordan Clarkson, Royce O'Neal, Donovan Mitchell. So this is our kind of mid-second quarter, mid-fourth quarter lineup. Like our first rotation is Trent and Hassan comes in. Then our next rotation is Jordan Clarkson comes in, and then often Trent stays. Sometimes he doesn't, but this is kind of so sometimes this could be a late first quarter before Rudy and Mike come back, but more often this is the second quarter lineup that kind of bridges us from the beginning of the second quarter to when we go to our closing lineup in the second and fourth quarters. And this lineup has been great. So this is Donovan at the point with Royce O'Neal, Jordan Clarkson, Bojan Bogdanovic, Hassan Whiteside, and that lineup has been great at plus 44. Now we get into our next one, which is the new formed bridge lineup, which is Mike Conley with now Jordan Clarkson, and instead of Joe Ingles, Daniel House, and instead of George Niang last year, Rudy Gay, and Rudy Gobert. And that group has only played 5 games together and only 40 minutes still. So the sample size is still really small on this. And they're a plus 1.3. The next one is if Eric Paschall is in instead of Rudy Gay. They've played 25 minutes a game. They're plus 4.1. Here's the common threads on this group. It's interesting. The defense is fantastic. So we have 8 games worth in 65 minutes worth of time. And the defensive rating in the bridge group, which used to be an offensive killer, is now about a 94, 90, is about a 96, 97, which is brilliant. Anything under 100 is great. Offensively, the group with Rudy Gay really has a hard time scoring. And even the group with Eric Paschall is not great. So not having George Niang, not having Joe Ingles 40% three-point shooting in that lineup, which is what made it so dominant, having Jordan as a one-on-one player, having Mike be able to play pick and roll with Rudy, and spacing with 2 40% three-point shooters, and we're now spacing with 2 mid-30% three-point shooters, is a big difference. So that's an area where we are significantly different. We're still positive, but we're not plus 19 like we were a year ago. So that lineup is just not, this is the 240, right? This is, we just don't quite have 240 minutes worth of basketball the same way we once did. All right. So let's look at here's one that's been a real problem. Mike Conley with Donovan Mitchell, Royce O'Neal, Bojan Bogdanovic, and Hassan Whiteside. This has played in 8 games recently. This lineup does not play very often. This is if Rudy Gobert is out or something, because Mike doesn't play with Hassan very much. This lineup is minus 22.4. I would suspect that lineup never sees the face of the floor during the playoffs. I don't think Mike will be separated from Rudy at all in the playoffs. Rudy might be separated from Mike in the sense that Rudy's going to play 37, 38, and Mike's going to play 30, but I don't think so. Another interesting lineup is Donovan Mitchell. This is, I think, happened a little bit in games where Mike Conley didn't play, or I'm not, but it's happened in 7 different games. Donovan Mitchell now with Trent Forrest, which makes a lot of sense because Donovan gives Donovan a break defensively. Trent takes the best defender, and Daniel House. So you now have Donovan as the 3rd best defender. But we go to Jordan Clarkson and Hassan Whiteside. So now Daniel House is kind of playing your 4. Clarkson and Mitchell and Forrest are on the floor together. It's only played 20 minutes, small sample size, and it's plus 19. You almost feel like, frankly, I should do this without including the other night. I just thought about that. Like if we actually were to take all this to Tuesday, the night before the game against a non-NBA team, you wonder how different they would be because some of these lineups I think would be a little less good. I've just changed that filter. And this lineup stays plus 11. that still stays pretty darn good in that matchup. If you take out last night, by the way, the starters are minus 19 in their last 7 games together. Then Whiteside, the first substitution is plus 14.5. The next substitution, which is that Hassan Whiteside, Bojan Bogdanovic, Jordan Clarkson, Royce O'Neal, Donovan Mitchell lineup. So Donovan with Jordan, Royce, Bojan, and Hassan. That one's plus 39 in its last 11 games. That's been really good. Then we get into the bridge lineups that we talked about. The one with Rudy Gay is 4 games, 34 minutes minus 1. The one with Eric Paschall is plus 4, 3 games, 25 minutes. And then we move into the lineup that I told you I didn't think we'd ever see, and we move to Hassan Whiteside. Now we get back to another the Donovan Mitchell, Trent Forrest, Daniel House, Jordan Clarkson, Hassan Whiteside. 2 offensive players, 2 defensive players, and Whiteside, and that one's plus 19. So it's interesting. My takeaway here is, as we review this, kind of all over the map, apologize, that whole filter thing just got me flustered, is the fact that what we're seeing is some of the lineups, the bridge lineup is really the piece that's not the same. And then the other issue is that for whatever reason, our starters are really bad right now. Our starters in 109 minutes are minus 19 over the last 7 games. Like, that group that probably should drive us through most of the playoffs has not been very good. The other one I would say that is interesting, that's really where we're different, is if you think of O'Neal, House, and Forrest as defensive players. In lineups where we have 2 of them on the floor, we're pretty good, which is different, so dramatically different than anything we've done before. If you think of Paschall as a defensive player, which I'm not sure, we have one lineup that's plus 4. We have a lineup with Trent Forrest and Daniel House that's plus 19. We have a line, and you would think we just couldn't score in these lineups. One of the other ones is Trent Forrest in for Mike Conley with the starters is plus 27 over the last 5. Those are some games from Mike's missed. And Forrest with House with Rudy Gay, Rudy Gobert, and Jordan Clarkson. So bridge lineup with Trent Forrest instead of Mike Conley is plus 7. So we're still transforming, I think, is the takeaway there of what we're doing. So I think that I think that I think we're still transitioning. We still haven't found the answer, is I think what we just discovered truly there. Today's show is brought to you by Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street. Also over in Logan and in Linden. The Murdochs have decided they will not charge more than MSRP, despite their ability to do so right now with the car shortage. That's just not who they are, not what they believe in, not what Blake wants. And so you will not have that. There is still, like, cars are sold before they get to the lot. So you need to head down there and check in and help them out to the best. Help yourself out by checking in with them and having the meeting. I can set you up with a one-on-one over at Murdoch Hyundai at 4646 South State Street, or in Linden or in Logan. Feel free to email me first at dlock09, and then feel free, and then I'll give me the location and I'll set you up with that meeting, and we'll give you that VIP experience. The Palisades, absolutely beautiful, as well as the Santa Fe. We have 2 of them in our house. I'm driving the Kona right now. It's been fun. It's been zippy. It's got 31 miles a gallon. That's nice. That's nice right now. The 31 miles a gallon was really nice last time. So check it all out. The Sonata and the Elantra, are the North American cars of the year. At least the Elantra is. And again, great gas mileage in a supercar. So that is all brought to you by Murdoch Hyundai. Today's show is brought to you by Bet Online. Our good friends over at betonline.net, where you can get all in on all the action, learn all the news, all the latest odds, and everything else for what's taking place, whether it's college basketball or others, baseball getting ready. Get those, the World Series lines. What are the MLB futures? The World Series favorite is the LA Dodgers. That sucks. Then the Mets, the Braves, the Astros, the White Sox, the Yankees, the Padres all come in at 12-1 or less. Blue Jays, Rays are the next at 15-1 at betonline.net. Today's NBA games, college basketball, super fun right now as well. Today's NBA games, the Utah Jazz are a 5.5-point favorite to deny Pop in this one against the Spurs. It's all at betonline.net. This is a great question. Do you think Trent will play in the playoffs? I do, but I do have great concerns about whether his lack of shooting, therefore lack of spacing, won't become a major issue. I think that's a real question, Matt. I think it's great. It's a perfect question. It's a great, knowledgeable question. The other night, somebody knew Dallas knew him and just didn't play him, and he couldn't play. So I think that's a real concern, frankly. Tyler says, "Good morning from San Antonio. I just moved here, decked out in my Jazz gear. Well, I'll look for you. Yell at me, say I'm Tyler." And people will be like, "Who's the crazy guy yelling who thinks he's so self-important that they're going to know he is?" And I will say, "Tyler!" Probably not exactly like that, but I could. One of the things I think that's still kind of out there for me, by the way, on Trent, I was going to update this for you. I mean, the issue with Trent is we space him to the corner. Can we play him in the dunker instead? I don't know, but we space him to the corner, and I think he's on his corner 3. I think he's about 4 of 15 for the season. He doesn't shoot it much, but that's problematic. One of the other things I think is the big question for us as we move forward, and I don't know that tonight will totally show it. And there's 2 parts to this, actually. One is, can we defend well enough against the good teams? And when we did the numbers earlier this year on top 10 defensive team, top 10 offensive teams and how we did, it wasn't great. What was interesting is our offense still was great. Our offense was still number 1 against top 10 teams. So that was not a surprise in any way. We were still just as good as that as we've ever been. And so we are still an offensive team. I've watched our coaching staff just implement thing after thing after thing to try to deal with us defensively. And at some point, I just get concerned that maybe we just don't have the defensive prowess. But on the other end, I do think our defensive intensity picks up and we get better when we hit the playoffs. And maybe that is enough. 4 of 16 for Trent on that corner 3 so far this year. And teams, by the time we hit the playoffs, teams certainly scout that in every way possible. So the issue to me that I'm touching on with us offensively is just kind of trying to see, or defensively, is trying to look and see whether or not, if you look at it game by game, which is a hard thing to do, whether or not we're making any progress. And the way I do it is I have every game kind of ranked. And so then you look and see whether or not, do you have a span of top 20 games? Do you have a span of ideally top 15 or top 10 games? And what that would tell you is that you've made some inroads in who you are. So recently, here's where we've ranked game by game defensively. Now, Portland was our second best defensive game of the year. And again, so if you play NBA players against non-NBA players, then, and Josh Hart. But this is pretty interesting. We had a little stretch there where we played the Knicks, and that was our 11th best defensive game of the year. And then we played the Warriors, and that was our 5th best. And then we played Orlando, and that was our 14th best. And then we played the Rockets, that was our 25th best. Right before even the Lakers was our 42nd best. So it felt like we had made great inroads to who we were defensively. We came out of the break playing some really good teams, but Dallas was 49th ranked defensive performance of the season. Phoenix was despite the win, was our 61st ranked defensive performance of the year. Houston was our 50th defensive ranked performance of the year. New Orleans was our 60th defensive. So we went the exact opposite way when we came out of break. Our offense continues to be great. New Orleans was obviously just a mess on our end. Then the Thunder was only the 32nd, and then the Mavericks were the 51st. So really pretty disconcerting stretch of defense from the Jazz here. If you are ranking of our defensive outings, so the only time we've been worse year defensively than some of the games we're seeing right now, just to put it in perspective, in Miami, we were 64th defensively. Well, that's the best team in the East. Against Boston, we were 65th defensively. We won that game. That is against the now hottest team in the East. Against San Antonio, when we played them earlier this year, we were 59th defensively. We lost that game. So that was one of our least good defensive outings. Indiana and Detroit back-to-back on the road. We were 63rd and 62nd, and then came home against the Cavaliers without any players. This was in January, so I really don't worry about that. So here's Memphis and we were bad against Memphis and Minnesota at the end of January. I really discount anything that happened in January, but if you look at our worst defensive outings, things that were between 50 and 65 at this point, which is how many games I think we've played, or maybe 66. But so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those 7, 8 of those all happened in January. Okay, so I dismiss those. But then you have the Phoenix game on February 27th. You have the New Orleans game on March 3rd. You have the Rockets game on March 2nd. You have the Dallas Mavericks game on March 7th. You have literally our most recent games is the worst defensive stretch we've had all season long. We have, like, the statistics would tell me that we have completely let go of rope defensively recently. That's a bummer. Now, we're supposed to be, what's weird about that is now with House and Forrest playing, we're supposed to be way better defensively than we've ever been before. And I would have to say that's surprising. So the question, we talked about the lineup thing. Can we solve that? Number 2 is right now, we're not good defensively. We've taken a bit. I will look at it. My guess is that our post All-Star break stretch defensively is as bad as we have been in eons. And some of it is, as I tweeted the other day, we're allowing the most threes of any team in the NBA. A lot of this is, I think, we're fiddling right now, and we're trying to do things to get ready for the season and, those kind of items, and try to figure out, like, okay, well, what are we and how are we going to play and all of that. But if you look at us from February 18th to today, I think that's the right date, isn't it? February 18th is, yep, that's All-Star break. So I'm right on that. Our defensive rank in the NBA, by the way, Orlando's number 1, which is just incredible, is now 18th. We're plus 2.7 in that stretch, but we're down to 18th defensively. Now, we've played some good teams, so that can skew it. But it doesn't feel like, okay, like we became more defensive minded. And frankly, I'll do the same thing again, and this isn't totally fair because everybody else gets to play them too. But if I take away Portland, which was our second best defensive performance of the year, we're 26th. Those numbers are concerning to me. Now, coming out of the break, playoff, there's a lot of reasons, but they're only reasons if we fix it in the next 15 games. Wow. I didn't know this. Yorga says that we're 28-4 when we have a defensive rating under 110. It's because we're like one of the great offenses of all time. I did not know that. Special shout out to Bryce, who says he's going to Australia for a month and a half and he will miss living in the morning, but he will be following along. Bryce, we appreciate you. All right. Today's show is brought to you by Built Bar. Where's my Built Bar? Oh, they're over there. Haven't had my Built Bar yet today. They're incredible. The Puffs are marshmallow-infused protein bars that, if you have not had yet, they're seriously amazing. White chocolate shamrock. I mean, they are going all out now. White chocolate shamrock is available. Yesterday, there was one available for just a day if you're on there. It was something with nuts, so I didn't buy it. But the Puffs, the churro, the banana cream, the coconut marshmallow, the ruby chocolate are amazing. And then the regular, the double chocolate, the cherry barcia, the mint brownie, the peanut butter brownie, the raspberry, the coconut almond, cookies and cream, and salted caramel. Plus, limited release caramel almond delight is still available. They are Built Bars. They taste like a candy bar. They are absolutely outstanding, and they give you 130 calories is all, only 2.5 fat grams, 4 net carbs, 4 sugars, 6 grams of fiber, and 17 grams of protein. It's Built Bar. Use the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off. Time now for a little thing we like to call points gained. Points gained is the system we use to evaluate offensive players. The system is basically takes how much you use an individual possession above the league average, and then that's weighed, as well as how many scoring opportunities you use on a given night. So Nikola Jokic uses 20 scoring opportunities a night. He scores 3.8 points more than if average players were to use those 20 possessions. It doesn't have to be one. It could be just a collection of average players using those possessions. And he is 3.8 points better. That is elite. Last year, if you are new to this, last year the best in the league was Steph Curry at 4.0, then Kevin Durant at 3.8, Zion Williamson at 3.2, and Nikola Jokic at 3.1. In the 1920 season, James Harden was number one in the league at 3.3, Karl Anthony Towns at 3.2, John Collins at 3.0, and Dame Lillard at 3. That's an incredible year by Dame. And then the 18-19 season, it was Giannis at 3.6, Steph at 3.5, Harden at 3.3, Durant at 2.9. You'll see a pattern here. We usually have about 3 people that are above 3, and that's it. And then once you have those 3 people above 3, and then it is about 10 or 12 at 2. So, and as we get closer to the season, we get closer. So Jokic is 3.8. Rudy Gobert is second at 3.2. Giannis is 3.3. Jarrett Allen 3.1. Kevin Durant 3.1. Karl Anthony Towns 2.9. Big guys have been more prominent this year than ever before. The league's adjusting a little bit. We're seeing the numbers come down. DeAndre Ayton is 2.5. By the way, this is why teams who just stop Rudy Gobert are right. Like, the first thing you actually should stop with us is Rudy Gobert getting more than 5 shot attempts a night. If you're defending us, you should just not allow that to happen. It's too high percentage. He's the first player in the history of the NBA to score 15 points and shoot 70%. Jarrett Allen was close, and Jarrett Allen, I think, is slipped to under to 68% shooting. DeAndre Ayton is 2.5, Joel Embiid 2.5, LeBron 2.4, which is just totally incredible. Robert Williams 2.4, Okongwu in Atlanta 2.2, Domantas Sabonis 2.2, Sean Holmes 2.1, Harrison Barnes 2.0, Mitchell Robinson 2.0. Wing players, non-centers that are in the next bunch. So these are guys that are really special offensively and change games. Zach LaVine 1.8. DeMar DeRozan 1.5, Steph Curry 1.5, L. Bridges 1.4, Trae Young 1.3, Kyrie Irving 1.2, Royce O'Neal actually 1.2, Bojan Bogdanovic 1.2, Joe Harris injured 1.1, just into guys. James Harden to 1.1, used to be much, much better. Your least good, or most, not least good, but most negatively impactful offensive players in the league that play, at least 40 games. Jalen Suggs, Reggie Jackson, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Cade Cunningham, not surprising, Josh Giddey, Russell Westbrook, Ricky Rubio was here, Davion Mitchell. It's amazing how rookies are always in here. Some of these rookies are really, the shooting on some of these guys is a little like Davion Mitchell's a 40-31. That's a little disconcerting. Jalen Suggs is a 36-22. That's a little bit more than a little disconcerting. Josh Giddey, for all of his love, is a 42-26. These numbers are a little concerning on this class. RJ Barrett, Paul George in his 26 game, Killian Hayes, 36-26 for Killian Hayes. That's second year in the league. That's concerning. Trey Mann, Oklahoma City rookie. Cameron Payne, and that's kind of Cole Anthony is our next one at minus 1.4. Those are the least efficient offensive players in the NBA, and we'll check our Utah Jazz before we wrap this baby up. Sorry, I was expecting a call, and it has rung, so I will have to jump here in a second. I have to do the morning show, but let's quickly look at the Utah Jazz. Rudy Gobert, 3. Hassan Whiteside, 1.2. Royce O'Neal, 1.2. He's been great this year. Bojan Bogdanovic, 1.2. He's been great. He's out tonight. Pascal, 0.6. Don Mitchell, 0.6. That's a major jump for Don Trent 1.2, Kai 1. The only negative is Rudy Gay minus 0.6. Jordan Clarkson minus 1.1. He's really brought that up. And then we mentioned Alexander Walker. All right, that is Locked On Jazz today. Have a wonderful day. Thank you very much for tuning in. Appreciate you. Have a great trip to Australia. Talk to you soon.